seems safe enough. It seems like a very antiseptic way of making contact, but there's no physical nitty-gritty behind it. But I mean, information, that's the crucial factor there, and frankly, what motive might a civilization have for sending out just a "We are here" broadcast? And that's a subject of much debate within the SETI research community.
What if SETI draws in the wrong kind of crowd? You know?
Well, I think it's possible.
Here we are. Even though our transmissions have been going out for years, what if they do beam it out and bring in the wrong crowd?
Well, if they brought in the wrong crowd, there would be nothing we could do about it. I mean, we basically would have to stand back and let the wrong crowd do its thing, because I don't think there would be any reasonable chance of our technology having the muster of confronting an interstellar civilization, assuming it were to come here.
If there are structures on Mars, let's say, Mac, did they, one, come here, two, never come here, they just simply died off, or did we go there? Right, yeah, it's a chicken and egg question, and it's a great one, and it's a fun one to puzzle over. If they were a spacefaring civilization that visited Mars, you'd have to ask yourself, well, why wouldn't they come to Earth? At one point, Mars and Earth were both very Earth-like, both very hospitable. So, why would they forsake Earth? Why would they stick on Mars? And that becomes an inquiry in its own right. You know, searching Earth's fossil record for evidence of extraterrestrial visitation in the very remote past. Did Earth produce some sort of technological spacefaring civilization in the very remote past? I think the odds are against it, and certainly no mainstream anthropologist would argue with me on that. But as Robert Anton Wilson said, the universe contains a maybe, and I can't absolutely rule that out. And if that were the case, I suppose that would tie in rather well with the idea that we're sharing the planet with cryptoterrestrials. Maybe the cryptoterrestrials were ultimately Martian or in origin, or maybe they're a remnant species of the civilization that once arose on Earth, went to Mars, and now exist in very diminished numbers on the surface of Earth. Might these crypto-terrestrials, are their cities dramatic, let's say, if they're underground, or are they living in caves? I can't see a sophisticated civilization.
Neither can I.
Living in a cave and enjoying it.
Right. No, I think that if we are sharing the planet with a sister species, a humanoid species that looks essentially like us, maybe with some differences, obviously, but I don't think that they're living in caves necessarily. I don't think that they're living in cities either. I don't think that they're living in grand opulent cities underground. That's a kind of a seductive notion from a Richard Shaver perspective for fans of the Hollow Earth mythos. Well,
in Star Wars, they had incredible technology, Mac. I mean, incredible. Yet their houses were all like stone.
Well, maybe that's the way it goes. Maybe that happens some places.
Maybe.
But I think that they live among us, at least to an extent. And there's an interesting story. I was in contact with a guy, a scientist, and he had a very strange encounter with what he described as little people that he encountered in a wooded area. And it was an arranged meeting, and and I'm not saying this happened because, for all I know, he's lying to me, but I found what he was telling me compelling, and I asked some questions about it. But the story he painted was quite interesting. He said the people were little, and when he said he described them as little, he said, I mean just that, little. They weren't disproportionate or otherwise strange or noteworthy, except that they were just extremely small.
I mean, pygmy size or three inches tall?
Pygmy size he was talking about. And he said that they spoke their own language, although they were adept at English, and they would masquerade as normal humans. They would masquerade as children and homeless people. And I got the sense that these beings, if they existed and I wasn't being put on, lived a kind of hobo-like existence. They also told him that their civilization predated the Indians in North America. which would make them quite old indeed.
Did they have technology?
That was a question I wasn't able to answer. I don't know what level of technology. They certainly seem to be aware of our technology, and I speculated that maybe they relied on our technology to some extent. And it kind of fell into place for me because I was wondering, if we're sharing the planet with the sister species, we would seem to be the numerical victors, and we would be crowding these others off the stage, and they would justifiably be quite concerned about this. And this might explain episodes of abduction where reproductive material is taken. And maybe there is some sort of genetic campaign underway, and it could be used to reinvigorate the gene pool of a civilization that's been genetically compromised for thousands of years.
And is that the reason why they hide?
And that could absolutely, that's why they hide. I mean, if you were in their place, assuming there is a they, this is necessarily an exercise in speculation, but if you were in their place, certainly you'd be laying low as much as you could.
Would you put Bigfoot in that category as an extraterrestrial, or as perhaps an earthbound entity?
Good question. I don't know. I think there's a case to be made. Nick Redfern, I know, has had many illuminating things to say about the Bigfoot controversy. One thing that's strange about Bigfoot is that, on one hand, no less a person than Jane Goodall has mentioned Bigfoot as an interesting phenomenon worthy of study, and she sees nothing inconsistent with primatology that would preclude a large ape-like creature living in North America. So that's one interpretation. We could be dealing with a big animal, a big intelligent animal.
Yeah.
Something that possibly forked off the evolutionary road, a million years ago. On the other hand, there are sightings of hairy dwarves or even the larger, quote-unquote, Bigfoot-like entities seen in a ufological context, near UFOs, near apparent landed alien vehicles. And John Keel was very keen on the idea that we were being misdirected by some sort of psychotronic technology, that whenever we saw monster sightings or UFO sightings, they usually occurred within a very general geographical proximity, that we were seeing different aspects of the same phenomenon. And John Keel, I should probably note, didn't think we were dealing with beings that had our best interests at heart. He saw
like David Jacobs.
Like David Jacobs, he came at the phenomenon from a very different angle, but with the same cynicism that Jacobs has written about in his books. He thought that the human species was being exploited. And, of course, Charles Ford, it all kind of comes back to Charles Ford's seminal idea that we are property. And, if we are property, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not valuable property. And whether the human species is someone else's project in some respect or some sense, that's a question that the crypto-terrestrial scenario begs an explanation for that.
All right. Well, we'll take phone calls. Let's take some